When We Disagree is a show about arguments, how we have them, why we have them, and their impact on our relationships and ourselves. Arguments are a funny thing to study. On the one hand, it can seem like you're studying something very specific, like the properties of a persuasive statement in a courtroom, perhaps, or perhaps psychology in high conflict relationships. On the other hand, arguments are everywhere. They're so ingrained in our everyday lives that they can be really hard to see. In fact, the title of a popular textbook on argumentation is called Everything's an Argument. That title is an argument. My social media feed is full of arguments. So is every advertisement I've seen today. Even architecture can make arguments. I've taught in a million windowless classrooms, and I always wonder why sunlight or seeing outside while learning wasn't deemed important. Someone more creative than I am can probably figure out how tidal waves or leaf beetles are arguments as well, but the point should be clear. We often make the mistake of thinking that we're somehow outside of the process of argument and counter-argument, of contention. I'm just delivering basic information, or I'm just relating my experience, my feeling. Information and personal reflection are also arguments, and they are subject to dispute. Even if I tell you some simple piece of information, people speed on my neighborhood street, for example, I'm asking you to see the world as I do. I'm making an argument. I'm Michael Lee, Professor of Communication and Director of the Civility Initiative at the College of Charleston. Today's guest is Marla Estes, founder of Building Bridgers, who has been a leader in the depolarization movement since 2017. Marla, tell us an argument story.
Okay, well, I have to give you a little background because prior to the election in 2016, the presidential election, I was pretty apolitical. I belonged to, a party, but I didn't know anything about politics. And when I woke up after the election results, I thought I had this very strong thought, like I need to do something about the divide, which came out of the blue. So what happened is at the time, there was someone in my life, an acquaintance, we'll call her Kim, and she had voted for Trump. I had not. And I just want to note right now that after all this, I'm politically homeless. I don't have a side. But then I did, but I was trying to understand what happened. I really was like Alice in Wonderland. I felt like I've got to understand what's going on. And so Kim was saying how happy she was about Trump. And I was trying to, do this thing I'd never done before. And I said, well, why? And she gave me certain, things that were really important to her. And at one point in context, which I don't remember, I had done enough reading finally by that point that I said, well, I have to say I am pretty ashamed of my own party because I really feel that they threw the working class under the bus, and she was working class. And she said, oh, don't feel ashamed. And we both started crying. And what happened is it really de-escalated later on. Now it's like part of the coda of bridging or depolarization, to find genuinely, you can't manipulate or fake it, but you find something about your own side that you're critical of, and you may find something about the other side that can say, yeah, that was a good idea. That's the kind of journalists I look for anyway, because I know they're thinking and they're not just running by their own ideology. But I learned really important because I saw that she was up to that point, and she even said, I don't know why I feel like it's life and death that you understand why I voted for Trump. And then later on, I learned, our survival mechanisms get galvanized with these opposing views, or they can. So it's a lot, like I learned a lot that I would learn about why later. And it really, I've got chills right now because I just feel like I saw so, not abstractly, I saw in the moment that this humility around an ability to zoom out enough to say, my side didn't get that right, and your side, I didn't find something at that point to say to her, but later on I have said to people, what I find is right about both sides and where they get it wrong. So that's basically my story.
Mm. What's the outcome for you in your relationship with Kim? Did it deepen the relationship? Did you find a new mutual understanding for one another? Are you still in touch?
Well, she was my housekeeper,
Mm-hmm.
and she then got very ill. So
Mm.
I actually hadn't, we had nice, in fact, until she got ill, I noticed that our relationship was a lot warmer. We never talked about it again, but I felt like there was an ease there that hadn't been there before. We really did share a moment, you know, aside from what we were talking about. But it did teach me how that works, how de-escalating things, and you're in communication. There's something about, if I'm calm and my nervous system is calm and I can de-escalate in a genuine way, people usually follow suit, and for me, if I'm and I've been in the bridging world for a while now, and at certain talks and things, people would get hot and I would get feel frightened, because I'm conflict avoidant, believe it or not. And I could use that to calm myself down. And it creates some other kind of nonverbal understanding that we're safer here than we think we are, maybe.
Talk to me a little bit about your reaction to the 2016 election. So many people who on the left who were on the losing side in that election woke up and thought, we need to figure out a way to eliminate the other side. We need to figure out a way to move away, escape the other side. And then a group of people said a different reaction, a third way, which is we need to heal the divide. That sounds like where you ended up. Why do you think you chose that option over the other two?
Well, I wasn't highly political before. I had kind of bought into the tropes of the 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 left, but thinking back, I did do an elective course at our university, SOU, Southern Oregon University, that I was allowed to create myself, and it was called Exploring Right and Wrong Through Film, because I have two passions. One is bridging, depolarizing, and the other one is movies. So I use these movies all to show like moral gray zones, like really thoughtful. They were all but one were feature films. One was a documentary. And I think I had already started doing that work, because once I got into it, I didn't understand politics that well, but I got a fast education. But I understood people's positionality, and really one of my pet projects is kind of like how, when especially media presents things as either binary, black or white, and we're not able to zoom out to get the bigger picture to really make a more informed voting choice or moral choice. We often, and there's so much misperception about the other side. There's a great study called the misperception gap. Do you know of it? Yeah, where people are imagining the others are more extreme in their views than there are. So all to say, the idea that we make strong moral stances quite often on misperceptions
It sounds like,
is striking to me.
sorry for interruptions. It sounds like you have these two passions of yours, depolarization, bridging, and then also film. And yet the guiding light for both of them, unless I'm completely off my rocker here, is to live in the gray, which is that the space between us in our political polarization is actually our misperception that there is no gray area. There is no green grass between us, that we're locked in this good and evil Star Wars struggle. And then you teach a class where movies and narrations illustrate that same point. Talk a little bit about your fascination with the gray area.
Oh man, I just think that's where, well, first of all, if we're able to, and that's what a lot of my classes are about, as the psychological, neurobiological, if we're able to be more and more comfortable with the gray zone, we can take more and more of a broad view of things and hold many perspectives at the same time. So one of the things people who take my class over time, my classes say that they don't find that they have to have opinions so much about things. And it's more easy for them to say, I don't know enough about X to have an opinion. So they've developed, and I think it's a nervous system thing, very fundamentally, that we like certainty. It tricks us into thinking we're safe. And so this way of cultivating, being able to live in the gray and to nudge ourselves towards nuance. I love alliteration, so nudging and nuance really work for me. I just think it's a place where not only that you can get more clarity because you can see more aspects of a thing, but it's actually more creative. And I think that's where a lot of problems get solved, because working with the right and wrong and my side, your side, a lot of times problems can't get solved. And I want to get back to another point you made. People who I would run into, and I think it's changing a little bit, but there are some people, it's probably about 15 or 20% of on both sides together, that they don't want to bridge. They feel like their side winning is the solution and too bad for the others. Either they'll find out the other side was right or that. So I think in that gray area, people can solve problems together and come up with out of the box thinking, kind of the thesis, antithesis, synthesis idea.
I wasn't expecting to hear Hegel, but well done.
There you go. You never know.
You never know. As I'm listening to you talk, I was going to close by asking you what are your kind of core lessons, but as you were talking, I think I've heard 3 lessons for depolarization that you're tacitly recommending, and I'd like to run them past you and see if they're right.
Right.
And then see what else you would add to this list.
Okay.
Right? So the first one I'm hearing is, we just talked about, embrace the gray area, live in the gray, be curious about the gray. The second one is, you're not that special. Don't pretend you're so righteous. And then the third one is, be conscious of the ways in which you can calm down and the ways that arguments can activate our nervous systems.
Very good. You're a fabulous listener.
What is there anything else? Thank you. Is there anything?
There's so many things. I don't even know if we should, but I mean, what the first class I teach when I'm doing a long-term class is cultivating humility, because I really think there's lots of ways to start, but I think that's really foundational, to just realize the other guy might know something you don't know everything. I remember I had a really aha moment when diving into this stuff, and I had an opinion about something, but I realized I had formed that opinion 20 years ago and never gotten the upgrade. So I think just making people aware of these cognitive biases and these ways we're wired, they can help themselves. It helps them catch themselves in the act.
Marla, thank you so much for being on When We Disagree.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Really fun.
When We Disagree is recorded at the College of Charleston with creator and host Michael Lee. Recording and sound engineering by Jesse Kunz and Lance Laidlaw. Reach out to us at whenwedisagree@gmail.com.